Hello everyone, let's have ourselves a chat. I'm John from Rusty Chains, and today our chat is about the newest update for Payday 3, Fear and Greed. This update brings new weapons, the return of Houston, and a new heist. It's also the final heist of the storyline that spanned across the 8 launch heists and the 4 heists of the Bad Apple campaign. Everything lore-wise has led to this. But does this update stick that landing? Well, let's take a look together. Something I immediately noticed about this heist is that maskless stealth isn't available as an option by default. The lore is that after the high-profile events of Boys in Blue and Houston Breakout, security has been heightened across New York City. Personally, I think that makes even more sense for a maskless stealth run, but you start your heist with your mask on the roof of the stock exchange, and this is true for both stealth and loud. This is a bit of a bummer for me. I find mask-off stealth to be the most rewarding and thoughtful playstyle of Payday 3, so having no option for that on this heist without farming the 4 DLC heists to get a specific favor to allow it just isn't super fun for me. However, and credit where it's due, the level designers did a really good job pivoting here with that in mind. Even on my loud build, I had a pretty easy time moving throughout the building and cover without getting detected. The level is really well structured for masked heisters to move around without it feeling constricted or frustrating compared to a maskless environment we're used to. This level, in general, is on the bigger side and is a really cool environment. You've got the fairly large roof for the start and the end of the heist, and then the main trading floor. Surrounding that, on the first and second floors are several offices, the security room, a conference room, a speakers hall, and the main control room. It doesn't sound like much, but when you're there, you really do feel a decent scale to it. So what are those objectives, though? They're actually pretty similar in loud and stealth. You start on the roof, like I said, and hack a power box to open an elevator and slide down into the main business area. From there, you go to the specified investment firm to hack a computer and steal a USB drive. In stealth, you'll need to search files for an access code to that computer while you're there as well, but in loud, you take some extra time to just brute force it. From there, you go on to access a terminal on the trade floor, and then make your way to the main control room. After a hack in there, you get a new money counter above your objective text on the HUD that will start ticking up with your stocks. There's a general cap it'll hit, and this cap increases with difficulty. However, it doesn't actually reflect your final pay for the heist. So for example, the cap on Very Hard is $6 million, but if you actually sit there and hit that cap, you still only take home around $1 million of pay. Now for the objectives again, the control room computer will display the name of a specific kiosk on the trade floor, and all of them have a circuit panel in them. You have to go to the specified one, find it, pop open the panel, and hack it to keep your value rising. If you're in stealth, this hack is instant. During loud gameplay, it takes about 100 seconds, and your market value can be decreased by a sabotage squad interrupting the hack. Whatever value you lose from a hack is permanently deducted from your total cap, so you won't hit that 6 million on Very Hard if you get interrupted. After the hack is completed, it'll give a code on that terminal that you have to enter back in the control room. For that reason, it might be a decent idea to split the party for the 2 different areas. One in the control room to enter the codes, and then some on the trade floor to run the hacks and get those codes. You repeat this process of finding and hacking an assigned kiosk before returning its code 2 more times. Now, after you've gone through all these hacks, the odds are you still won't be at your cap yet. You just kind of sit there until Shade says you're done. It'll just keep ticking up. So it's probably about 5 minutes of just killing cops without any additional objectives to do if you're playing loud. Or in stealth, you're sitting there even doing less than nothing. That bit is kind of a bit boring if you're going for that max payout. So I would have liked it if the hacks kept going or if this was an infinite heist, just so you had something to do. It feels hollow just waiting for a timer to tick down and display a disingenuous payout amount of money. Now when it's time to leave, you EMP the stock floor and make your way back up the elevator you came from. If you don't want to wait around, you can detonate the EMP when the 3rd kiosk is entered, but that is when the hacking stops, so that's your cutoff for some extra money. This is the point where the objectives kind of diverge for the first time. In stealth, an EMP knocking the entire New York Stock Exchange offline does alert the police. This doesn't fail your stealth state, but you have a short timer to make it back up to the roof where Bile is and make your escape before the police arrive. If you've been doing the run loud to this point, you have no timer, but you still return to the roof just the same. There are too many police already for Bile to make a landing on that building, so you set up the hacking device from Road Rage and signal boost it by building a satellite dish. You now have to defend the device from being paused as it takes control of a crane at a construction site nearby. You lift up a shipping container next to the stock exchange building and slide down the roof before jumping onto the container. From there you do a sick jump to the next door office building where Bile is waiting. I like that escape a lot in Loud. It reminds me kind of Undercover and similar other escapes you'd see in Payday the Heist. It's not super over the top, but it feels a lot more classic Payday than what we've seen recently in Payday 3. So with that all said, the heist is pretty good, but there are also some pretty big bugs that need ironing out, at least from our test build. First of all, due to the color grading of the blue glow from the trade floor, the base color for the heist is apparently a blue filter. That means every time you take damage on this heist specifically, armor or health, the entire screen just flickers with that blue glow instead of giving you a hit indicator. That's really annoying, especially if you're like me and have some color blindness going on. When I struggle to see colors properly, and then it all turns into a big wave of one blue color at the same time for a split second, it's really overwhelming and almost like a flashbang. It really did make me want to put the heist down sometimes. Also, sometimes when you initially spawn in at the beginning of the heists, the team AI can get stuck on the platform you have to jump down from. From their trapped state, they can revive you instantly and remotely no matter where you are, which kinda sounds useful, but they aren't shooting or drawing aggro, so it's easy to get overwhelmed on the heist with many flank routes from cops. These things really need to get ironed out right away before I give this a 100% flawless recommendation. But that's not all the gameplay content in this update. We received 4 new weapons, 3 of them in the form of a paid DLC weapon pack, and 1 for free. Now how do those stack up? Let's take a gander. First up is the TAS-12, based on the real-life SPAS-12. It's what you've been watching on screen for most of this video. Now this is probably the best shotgun in Payday 3. It's a pump shotgun with a fairly high rate of fire, a wide spread, and strong damage. That wide spread allows you to cover a wider blanket, or really get up in an enemy's face and just delete them immediately, where it excels. Most enemies are killed on a headshot with or without edge, and lighter cops can usually go down in one body shot with this gun as well. This shotgun is great fun, but eclipses the base game pump shotgun pretty easily. Next we have the Jackknife SE5, a recreation of the Browning High Power. Living up to the high power name, this gun is fast and highly accurate. It also has really high damage and is another very strong secondary. It doesn't really fit into any new niche or role. It's just an all-around good gun in the arsenal that feels a lot better and more impactful than most of the base game pistols. Last but by no means least in the paid pack is the Garstini Viper 50. It's a deagle. Now this thing is overtuned. It's got the damage and stopping power to surpass the bolt kick as the new king of secondaries in Payday 3. It can one-hit any special or normal cop with or without edge. It has incredibly high damage, high accuracy, and a decent rate of fire compared to what you would think would be attached to the other strengths. Starbreeze told us that it's meant to have lower armor penetration to offset this, but I certainly didn't notice that when playing. It still removes any cop you click on, and even one-hit kill shields if you hit the viewport. With some testing, if you have edge, it only takes 8 shots to kill a dozer. That's more than the overkill sniper, yes, but given that it's a secondary with fairly strong ammo pickup, you get those 8 bullets back pretty quickly. I feel like maybe it was supposed to slot into the niche filled by that sniper rifle to free up your overkill slot for the grenade launcher, which got a new sight this update, or the newly added minigun, which we'll talk about in a minute. The trouble here is that when you have a secondary that is good enough for you to be able to have a conversation comparing it to an overkill weapon, that just puts it among the best secondaries in the game by default. I think overall this pack is a little bit of a miss for me. Not because the weapons are bad, they're great fun and lovingly, incredibly animated as always. The problem is they're just all too good. Power creep was a slippery slope that fundamentally rocked Payday 2's balance for the better part of a decade, and that balance never really recovered. I think this DLC is the first clear-cut, inarguable example of that power creep hitting Payday 3. All three guns are better than most, if not all, of their counterparts in their respective categories, and I think they probably need a nerf before being factored into the spectrum of performance for future weapons. My biggest fear right now is that they get hit a little too hard and then become worthless. There's a middle ground here that can and should be found. Now I know I may sound somewhat hypocritical to now be advocating for nerfs after my position during the whole ammo funnel debacle, but I believe the context and background between the two here is entirely different. I'm more than willing to answer any questions about my perspective on that in the comments, and if I get a lot of questions about it, I'm also more than happy to drop a follow-up video where I go into more detail about my thoughts on that. Now, with all that said, let's yap for a minute about the M135 Arges minigun. This thing is free for all players and is the first new overkill weapon added post-launch. I won't even lie, it's great fun. It's got a few hundred rounds in it, and it fires incredibly fast, as miniguns are wont to do. It starts out firing relatively inaccurately, but the longer you hold the trigger, the more the weapon spread tightens. It fits nicely into the crowd control role alongside that grenade launcher, but without the risk of a bad bounce for self-damage. It also has fairly good armor pen, and will eventually eat through shields too, so they won't get in the way of your rampage. It does have a single large drawback though, which does get in the way of my enjoyment a little bit. While carrying the minigun, you suffer from a new debuff called Encumbered. While you're encumbered, you cannot sprint or interact with anything. You can only walk, shoot, and melee. Anything else requires you drop the gun. With how this gun chews through your enemies, I can't say that Encumbered is unbalanced or unfair. But I'd rather stick to my trusty sniper rifle, which is almost as effective at killing, while still letting me be a more helpful team member for objectives. It's entirely up to your personal preference, which I think is a good way to handle the overkill weapons. If nothing else, I recommend you try it out for a few heists and see how it fits your playstyle and the builds you want to slap it on. Now that covers all the new gameplay changing content for our update today. What do you think? Is a heist in this iconic New York location the fitting end to year one of Payday 3, or would you like to see this one shake out a little differently? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, don't forget to spread that happy and stay rusty.